Hello, hello, Harper. You are listening to WHCM 88.3 FM in Palatine, Illinois, a broadcast service of Harper College and its Board of Trustees. And everything on this show is going to be my own ideas and are not representative of Harper College, WHCM, or the Board of Trustees. But I'm sure they'll love us. I think they would love this podcast, and I'm sure they'll listen to it. You are listening to Global Education Unpacked. My name is Marie Lapidus, and this is where we explore how global learning takes shape in the classroom. This is, unpracticed, of course, in communities and across the world. This show is recorded live at WHCM Radio and produced by Blue Bailey. I keep messing up every time. Features our theme music, Mint by DJ Double Dip. And today, I am pleased to welcome Dr. Iman El-Sokari. Did I say that right?
Yes, correctly.
Oh, look at me go. She's a healthcare educator, accreditation specialist, and assistant professor of nursing at Helwan University in Egypt. Mm-hmm. So you're getting the experience of Egypt here today. This is amazing. At Harper College in Palatine, Illinois, just in the middle of, our suburbs over here. So Dr. El-Sokari's work focuses on improving the quality, accessibility, and structure of healthcare education with an emphasis on building systems that are inclusive, sustainable, and aligned with global standards. She's currently participating in the Humphrey Fellowship, where she's exploring best practices and competency-based education, workforce development, and international accreditation. Iman, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you for having me. I'm so delighted to be here. I'm so excited for our conversation.
I am excited for our conversation. I just think it's so nice to have people, international people in here,
Sure.
Not just talking about international, but actually being international.
Yes.
So it's awesome to have you here.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with the first, typical question about your background. So can you tell us about your education, how you got into healthcare, into nursing? How did you get to where you are today?
Oh, this is a very long question to start with. But first of all, I didn't choose to go for a healthcare or an education. I was pushed to step in.
Okay.
Back home in Egypt, the education system is totally different. So
yes.
We don't choose our, area of study. It's our high score.
Okay, so you take tests.
Yeah, for the high scores.
And the higher the scores, then determine the direction that you're...
Yeah.
Do you get a choice at all of your, what you go into once you score, or it's just picked for you?
Okay, so it depends on your high school score. It gives you a variety of tracks, and then you can choose from those available for varieties of role. And actually, my high school score qualified me for a school of nursing. And actually, it was shock, not only for me, but my family as well, because during my childhood, I wanted badly to be a neurosurgeon.
Okay.
So
my daughter wanted to be a neurosurgeon because of TV. She'll be a doctor, but not a neurosurgeon.
Yeah, it was my dream, my childhood dream.
Yeah.
But anyways, at that time I felt that I had disappointed my family a lot. So, but anyways, we didn't have anything to do. So I prepared my paper and went with my dad to register myself at School of Nursing. And I swear I still remember his face and how sad he was. And to the School of Nursing, you should pass the interview phase. And actually, of course, I was very disappointed. And then when I went to the interview, I don't know if I was lucky or not, but the interview panelist was the dean of the school at that time and one of the faculty. And actually, she started the stereotype of the interviews by asking me, why do you want to study nursing? And I was...
And you're like, I don't.
Exactly. This was my typical answer, and it came very fast, very confident. No, I don't. It's my high school score that brought me here. And I think there was a silent moment. Everyone was shocked, even myself. And then she tried her best to keep us on the track. And then she asked me, okay, at least tell me one motive so you want to continue your study here. And again, I surprised all of the attendees with my answer that, okay, so I think the only motive that work here is to be the dean for this college. And actually, I think those words, they didn't come from a place of confidence. They came from a place that I want to find something to challenge myself.
Yes.
You know,
But that is confidence, right? Because you want to be challenged, and that's important.
Maybe. Then I started to study hard, of course, and after earning my degree, I got appointed as a teaching assistant. And then I started, after 5 years of studying, I told myself, okay, Iman, look, maybe you were pushed to be here. Of course, you didn't choose. And of course, you wanted to be a neurosurgeon, so you can treat the disorders related to people's, mind or brains. But I think this is your golden chance, not only to treat their mind, but to shape it through education, to give them a floor to be a better versions of themselves.
Yeah.
And I think, I swear, this may be the first time after 5 years of fighting to de-escalate it with my situation. And exactly this may be the first moment where I started to fall in love with the healthcare and education.
And that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And look at all the things that you're doing and how helpful it is. So I think that's it's a good lesson. It's, in the United States, I was thinking about that after we had our dinner about, the different structures that governments have of how to, build their workforce, right? And typically, the more social the country and system, right, the less options you have, because you kind of do what's for the common good, right? So in more socialized countries that are less individualistic than the United States, the government kind of says, well, we need this many of these people, we need this many of these people, and they kind of guide people into their positions, sometimes not happily, like with you, but they're given that, they're not given much of a choice. There maybe a little bit within, once they're in a certain situation in college, you might have, whatever level you're at, those are your 3 jobs, but those are the only 3 jobs, right? And then that's what you choose. In the United States, we give everybody like do whatever you want. And I don't know if that works for every single person, because sometimes, we have students, walk around thinking like, well, who am I going to be? What am I going to do? And they're going through this educational system without thinking about that. And we keep guiding them, as faculty, like, you have to think about that. And our advisors, like, what do you want to do? But how do they know? So I don't actually know which way is always best. I think there's people who need the individual, like I want to be this, and they're very clear in what they want. And then there's people who need that guidance, and maybe would work even better if they were pushed into a certain direction and said, well, try this. This might be, we need this, and you might get a good job, and you might be just as happy doing this than anything else.
I got you. I agree. But when it comes to very crucial and critical sectors like healthcare and education, I do believe that the one-size-fitting approach,
no,
it doesn't work.
Yes.
Especially on such sectors. So I think that, of course, we should allow for a more different choices, options, so they can go, but we should, mentor them.
Yes.
We should provide them and guidance. And I think this is maybe the role of the academic advisors and mentors, in which is something that we need to, use in a more valuable approach, where we can give them the range of option they can go and choose.
Right.
But as well, especially when it comes to workforce preparedness. For a healthcare professional or any other career, we need to have a mentor, to have someone who guide those
Right.
children to get and choose the right track for their life, and also for the benefit of the society and the economy
Right.
as well.
You have to kind of look at both of those, right?
Sure.
You have to look at both. So I was born in the Soviet Union, and my brother was older than me, and at that time the Afghanistan war was going on, and my mother's, one of the reasons we left is because she didn't want him to be in the war.
In the
She didn't
war.
want to be. She didn't want him, and he was, kind of a little bit of a. He didn't really comply with the government. My parents got called into school and stuff like that, and I was always so worried, like, you're gonna get us all in trouble, because it was communist, not very nice. And the biggest goal for everybody is like to take those tests, and if you place into college, you don't have to go into the army. And my mother was like, my brother is such a, it's not that he was stupid, not at all, but he was such a, like, against whatever, that he would, we didn't know how he would do on those tests, and then he would end up in the army. So she kind of made us leave so that he doesn't end up in the army, because those were the two kind of paths. Like, you either go to college or university, or you go into the army, because it was conscripted service, so you had to serve.
Yeah.
And women didn't serve. So then, and then also, if you didn't, like, once you completed army service, then a lot of those people after the army service, because it usually was, a couple of years, unless we were, in some war or whatever. And then they would go into vocational schools. So that, like, if you didn't place high enough to go into university, you went to vocational schools.
Yeah. And vocational schools and education, I think nowadays, especially with the intervention of AI, it's very critical,
Absolutely.
to give more attention to the vocational education and technical education, because we don't know what the future will bring, especially in the AI era.
Exactly. Hands-on might be the careers that are going to be the real big growth, that things that AI cannot do, or robotics cannot do, that you still need people for.
Sure.
And so, absolutely. I mean, this is why I really like the community college system in the United States, is because it sort of does both. You can get your vocational training, and we have, and degree, and feel like, you and I talked about it during dinner, having a degree kind of legitimizes you, right, as a career, right? Even if you don't, like, you can get a degree in being an electrician, or you can go be an apprentice and be just as great, right? But the degree kind of, in our societal norms, degrees kind of feel like you're smarter, wiser, I don't know. Like, I don't know why, but that's how we treat people, like, or you're smarter, right? Like, if you pass the test, then you're smarter to go to university.
Sure.
And I think it's the same. Like, there's stigma to having a degree, and I think having, community college that can do that and train people and still give them that educational degree is fantastic.
Yeah, I think there is another thing we can give an attention while working on the vocational and technical education, which is how to decrease and elevate such stigma, especially on global South communities and countries, because this is a big issue. People may refuse to go for a vocational education even if it's promising and they can earn more income and all of this.
Exactly.
Because they are stigmatized that they are not going to have a bachelor degree, they will go for a vocational education. So I think we need to work hard, shoulder to shoulder, with curricula design for the vocational and educational training, but also for the social awareness about the importance of such. We need those people, and they are very critical for our community and for our, economy as well.
Exactly. And, you can make some good buck, you can make some good money doing vocational work, and that should not be ignored. And, and have a great career and enjoy what you do and make an impact just like you do in any other career.
Yes.
So we so agree. Look at that. So what are some biggest challenges in preparing healthcare professionals today? How do you make sure that the training is high quality and accessible?
Okay, so during my, my very humble experience, I saw a lot of a challenge, but I can speak here for the biggest two. From my perspective, the first challenge is, the skill in knowledge gap. And it's the growing skill and knowledge gap, because the landscape of healthcare, especially, has been dramatically changed due to many different factors. The patient preferences has been changed, their values, their beliefs, their culture context, a lot of wars. So all of these factors give us another landscape of healthcare where our students need to learn very well how to deal not only with the technicality of giving healthcare services, but also to understand all of these factors. So there's a big difference between teaching in the classrooms where I give you the diagnosis, the treatment,
Right.
this is how to give the care, you have to, and when this person go for the real life where he or she will interact not only with giving the care itself, but also with all of these factors. So this is a very challenging gap we need to work on. The other gap I see is, the current debate between the quality of clinical education and the accessibility of this education. So we have a debate between what is available and how to enhance the quality of such education. For example, we know very well as an educator that it's very critical to include new technologies, such as high fidelity simulation. We know the impact of this very well. We understand that. But we know that those technologies are very expensive.
Yes.
So go back to disparities, that when you compare global north countries with the global south countries, you can find that those people have the money, have the resources, they have the technology, and they can invest in the technology, which is unfortunately not the case at the global south country, especially those who are suffering displacement, war, and areas of conflict. So there is no balance here. So as the healthcare providers, we should look for more applicable solution to change, or not to change the situation, but at least to mitigate those gaps.
Yeah.
So we can go for a mentorship from the, those junior should be mentored by the seniors. Mm-hmm. Because you have a limited resources in terms of faculty number as well.
Right.
But we can use the student to be a mentor and to mentor each other. You can go for job shadowing as well. Especially, I'm talking here not for the resourcefulness countries. I'm talking about limited resources countries.
Right.
So we have to find the solution. This is our role. Because even for those technology, to train the faculty member to use this technology and how to cultivate a scenario and all of this stuff, it takes time and money, and we need the resource to do this. So coming from not limited resources country, but maybe we don't have the luxury to have a high fidelity simulation across all of our disciplines within the healthcare. We have, for example, back home we have here, for example, you have a full simulated hospital. Back
Yes.
home, yeah. So back home, we have standalone departments. So we have an simulated intensive care unit or labor unit. But we can compensate this shortage by having more, tailor-made teaching methods. So
Right.
we go for senior mentorship. We go for, shadowing and all of this stuff. It's a matter of balancing, so we can mitigate such gaps.
Absolutely. And I think, we face, the same struggles in the United States, where certain areas, even within the United States, do not have as many resources because they're more rural.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to get the same hospitals. They're not going to get the same doctors, because people don't want to necessarily live in a rural community and be a doctor. They might want to live in a city. And so the resources are different, like even on that small scale. It does happen here as well. But I think when you really look at it, like you take that and magnify it into the world of where, you're not going to have the same
Sure.
resources, the same equipment, all of that,
Exactly.
from hospital to hospital, and even from, educationally, from one educational hospital to
yeah.
another and system
Sure.
to another. So that is a challenge.
It is. It
That
is. And
is-
it's a big one, actually.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
It's a very big challenge. And, you also need to have the doctors and all of the medical staff, adjust to what they have. And, if they've been trained with something that, helped them along, and then now they end up in a place where they don't have that, they need to learn how to do it themselves
Sure.
and not have the resource that they were used to. So, yeah, those are quite the challenges.
Yes,
Quite the
they are.
challenges.
Yeah.
So you've been working with curriculum design and accreditation and competency-based education, so all of that, the skill-based. How do they come together in practice? Can you give us an example? Like, how do you do this in practice?
Okay, so throughout my career, and I do believe that it's still very short one. Yeah, I'm 10 years on practice now. But throughout those years, the most, falsificated idea or concept I have ever met that accreditation, it's all about documentation. So for me, mentioning those three elements, I see that they don't work separately.
Right.
And our system is broken once the educators start thinking that, okay, I'll just focus on curricular design or competency-based education, or those people that they want to get the accreditation for the sake of having the badge of the accreditation, or
Right.
to get for the federal fund, for example, or back home to be ranked.
Right.
So this is a problem. That's why many systems are broken. But for me, it's all those are very interconnected elements. So it all starts with the question that what are what the target element I need my student to learn? What's the learning outcomes I want them to acquire by the end of this module or course or whatever I'm teaching? Such a question give you like the entry key
Right.
to know the competencies you want them to acquire on cognitive level, on skill level, and attitude as well. Because I do believe, especially on healthcare industry, that the ultimate goal of any learning and education process is to change their attitude, to be more humanized.
Yes.
Yeah. So once you have this answer, it takes you to the following step, which is, okay, what should I teach them to fulfill these skills or this requirement, which is heading the curriculum designing as well. So you start to put your context, your teaching methods, how to assess your evaluation method to check if these outcomes have been achieved or not. And then, for me, the jewelry of the crown is the accreditation. Because by the end of the day, for me, I do believe accreditation is the master chef that give you the recipe. But the recipe here is the rubric.
Right.
That it give you how to choose or select the appropriate teaching methods, how to engage them, how to accommodate different style of learning, how to have an inclusive class, how to assess them, and how to achieve those competencies. So for me, they are very interconnected. They're working like an infinite loop. It's a completely process of enhancement. So we cannot go for one.
It has to be all of them together.
Of course. You
Of
have,
course.
yeah. Yes.
Of course. And so what kind of accreditations, like in Egypt for, let's say, for a medical school, what kind of accreditations do you look for?
Okay, so in Egypt, national-wise, we have a NACAI, which is the National Authority for Accreditation,
Okay.
and it had different tracks for liberal arts, for literature, for medical schools. But I think within the 5 years, there's 2 more national authorities have come to life. The first one, which is ITCAN, and I think it's more related to the vocational and technical education, as I mentioned during our dinner, that now we are giving more focus on the vocational and technical education back home, and this is only to certify and to accredit those programs. And then 2 years ago, we have the Egyptian Health Council, and Egyptian Health Council is more related to the continuing education and training for all of the medical sector.
Right.
Yeah, so I think now we have 3 different national authorities targeting 3 different majors. And of course, many of our schools, especially private universities or national universities, they are taking international accreditation that, equivalent to what they provide. So some go for a business accreditation from WHCSP here in the state. Some, for example, we have the National Training Academy, which is accredited from ASET here. So some go for a European accreditation. It depends on the offering.
Right.
But in terms of the formal accreditation, we have those 3.
Yeah. And I think, so we used to be, like the business program at Harper, we used to be accredited by ACBSP, and it accredits business programs. And there were a lot of international schools that were trying to apply so that they could have transfer opportunities for their students and to go come into U.S. schools and have, the relationship that their students can come over.
Yeah, and I think this accrediting body is more popular in Egypt. I think many of our business school, they are accredited from the same provider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. Well, you're currently part of the Humphrey Fellowship. Tell us what that involves for you. What have you been doing?
Okay, so Humphrey Fellowship, it's named after Hubert Humphrey, of course, and it's fully, funded by the Department of State. And actually the main concept of the fellowship is to bring the mid-level professional from different countries across the globe. And actually it's the unique edge of this fellowship that it's more hands-on experience. So you can mingle and you can learn because, so we can go for auditing classes without the stress of the exams. So for me, it's a good experience to go to the student life, but without the pressure of getting
Exactly.
the deadlines and assignment and all of this stuff. And actually, the other interesting part about Humphrey, there are 2 requirements besides the classrooms and the university life. That the first one, that you have to go for a professional affiliation. Professional affiliation, it's kind of internship where you should go for a governmental organization, an international organization or local organization to work for a certain period of time and to have some work and to do all of this. And I was lucky enough that my professional affiliation, I got a Tennessee Higher Education Commission, which is a local government of Tennessee, where I have still working on this, on the quality assurance funding project. And actually it was very informative learning experience because it helped me a lot to learn more about the higher education landscape here in the States, how the difference between different degrees offered within the higher education system. So for me, it was very informative experience. And the other requirement, which is impact plan. In Humphrey, as a fellowship, it helped me to discover some passion and some areas I'm interested to work on those areas. So impact plan, it's like your capstone or your graduation project where you have to work on idea that it's a need in your local community back home, and once you finished your fellowship, you go back and start to implement this.
So what are you doing?
Yeah.
Put you on the spot there.
Yeah. Actually, my impact plan is enhancing the learning outcome of the neurodivergent student.
Okay.
Because back home, if you're talking on related to the SDGs, so if you're talking about the availability and accessibility of education,
Right.
I think Egypt is 10 steps ahead. We have a lot of schools now, maybe we have a lot of universities, we have a different types of university our student can go. But especially for those neurodivergent, because they are not, maybe all of our schools and all of our universities are well prepared in terms of infrastructure to receive disability, but the physical disabled student. But when it comes to the neurodivergent, the disability is here because they are different people. We are talking about those who are suffering autism, dyslexia, or ADHD. And so are we talking, the most appropriate question here, are we talking about physical inclusion? If we are talking about physical inclusion, yes, they have a seat.
Right.
And they can go. But if we are looking for a real inclusion, of course, no, those students are left behind. Because it ends up that they are stigmatized if they don't are lucky, if they are not lucky enough to have well-educated parent, luxurious life, a rich parent to afford for the services and take care of their children. Of course, it ends up most of them are dropped out from the educational system because now.
Well, and if they don't pass the tests, right, and they may not pass the test not because they don't know the material, but because they can't do the tests. They're different, and it's hard for them to take a test.
And for them, they are different for us.
Right.
And after studying this issue, I'm now pretty sure that we are all different for them. So we are just looking from different angles for the same, for the same space.
Exactly.
So we need to work on this need. We need to, to make our curriculum more adaptive to them. So to enhance the capacity of our teaching and our teachers to, to how to include them, how to use different teaching methodology to go for this. We need to go for family counseling because it's a huge burden on families, economic, social burden, and the most important that the social stigma.
Absolutely, and I mean I think that's worldwide. I think as we open that up and talk about it and make it not quiet, we don't talk about those people. I think we realize, the variety of thought that brings to the world stage, right? Just it's all, you don't come and innovate if you're all thinking the same.
Of course, and I think many of them, they are capable.
Right.
We just need to, create the most fitting environment for them and give them the floor to flourish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's it.
Exactly. I'm going to ask you one more question, then we'll do the quick fire.
Okay.
So on a personal level, what makes you motivated to continue this work? Because you started out not so thrilled with your career choice, but now you're in it and you're doing all of this stuff. And are you challenged now? Are you happier?
I'm happier, of course.
Yes.
I feel that I'm here to do this. This is my feeling now.
Yeah.
And actually, on personal level, what keeps me motivated is my parent and my student. They are my motive. And I think on a professional level, and I have learned this by hard way, that I should, give my team and give my people the sense of ownership and give them the space to speak up and to consider their buy-ins in my plans. This is the thing, I feel, now I'm good when I just give them the floor to be included, because I have learned this by hard way, because in 2019 and to 2021 I was in charge of one of the accreditation project, and actually I was very young. I was in my late 20s, and I was very young and was target oriented. I never during this period I never been a people oriented. So this is the target, and we will go for the target,
right?
Regardless anything. But this experience taught me, okay, you achieved your target, but there is many other ways you can go and achieve your target, but to lead with empathy is important. To give the people the sense of ownership is very important. Of course, life punched me in my face after this period of time, and I have learned this by the hard way, but I have learned this.
Yes.
So I'm working now, to feed my internal feeling with I have to keep them on the track. I have to include them. So I think this is my professional motivation.
That's fantastic, and I hope that, I think we have that. Because I'm a business person, so in business you have that a lot, where it's the kind of, like you said, the task oriented versus the people oriented, and you have to, you do have to achieve your task, but you cannot forget the people, and the people are what makes the difference between one company to another, because everybody can make the same thing. Like people can figure out how to, like companies can figure out how to make the same thing and compete or whatever. But the only differentiator is the people who are doing it.
Sure.
And I think that, that is important in every aspect.
Because your people will back you.
Yes.
Not the project.
Right.
As you mentioned.
Exactly.
The project will be done either by me, by you, by anyone. Anyone can do the technicality.
Right.
But your people, is the most important element of the project. You have to, to take care of, to give them the floor to flourish and all of this stuff. Yeah. So saying that business is business for me now, after this experience, it doesn't work. And I don't believe in this.
I agree. All right, we're going to do quick questions, and I might mess up. And you're going to have to tell us what these things are.
Okay.
So, Ali or Zamalek? Did I say that right?
Al-Ahli or Zamalek, they are the most popular soccer club in Egypt.
Yes.
Yeah. And for me, Al-Ahli, and I don't keep it more diplomatic in this regard. I cannot. So Al-Ahli, of course.
Okay. All right. Egyptian coffee or Starbucks?
Oh, look, I'm a coffee person, so I don't say no to coffee, so I will take both.
Okay. Oh, look at you being all proper, Kashari or burgers and fries?
Of course, kashari. And by the way, I have to mention.
What is that?
Okay. Kashari is this is a very traditional food, and actually it's recorded as a Egyptian heritage in UNESCO.
Okay.
So it's like a mix of hummus, a mix of a different type of pasta, maybe a penne pasta or maybe spaghetti, rice as well, carameled onion, and we served it with hot sauce and tomato sauce as well, with garlic and butter, and with lime. So it's like a composition, but I think it's the famous, and it's one of the very old and traditional food.
Does everybody make it differently?
No, the same
it's
recipe.
the same recipe.
The same recipe.
Across.
And by the way, one of the stores, one of restaurant, I think they have a branch now at New York.
Oh.
Yeah.
All
so
right,
I think whenever there, just go.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go.
Yeah.
That's right.
And for burger and fries, they are not our natives. I have to make it clear. They just introduced to our culture.
Gotcha. Okay. I don't know how to pronounce her name properly. Angam?
Angham.
Angham?
Yeah.
Or Taylor Swift?
Oh, so, okay, so excuse me, but this is time. I love Taylor Swift, of course, but Angham, she's one of the famous, but actually in Egypt, we don't love Angham only because of her voice. Because there is a lot of singers that may be popular like her, and but we love Angham because her personality. She's a very charismatic, and she's a character. I can say it clearly that she's the typical definition of a strong, independent woman.
Excellent.
So it's like she's a diva.
I love her. I love her already.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to play her music.
I'll play a music for you.
Yes.
And sing.
You're going to have to send me some songs.
I will.
Absolutely. All right. Soccer or baseball?
Okay, so soccer, of course, because actually, as
have you been to a baseball game?
We went,
the US?
yeah, we went twice
Okay.
as a group, and actually,
Of course, they
yeah,
dragged you to a
yeah.
baseball game.
But soccer is more, it's more familiar back home. So
Yeah.
soccer, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. If you have enjoyed, I have absolutely enjoyed our conversation, and I
Me
think
too.
it was
Thank you for
very
having
important.
me.
It's very important to have, and I want people to realize that United States, we're very centric to the United States, and I want people to understand that other countries are discussing and doing the same things that we are also discussing and doing, and maybe doing it even better than we are. And so don't think just because, you may have a stereotype of a country or a people like, they're not as advanced as we are. That's not true about the thinking part.
Of course.
They may not be as advanced in certain technologies or whatever, but that doesn't mean they're not as advanced in the thinking parts. And I love having you here to show people, like, look, this are the same topics, like all the topics you talked about, we've talked about at Harper.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It's
That
my
was
pleasure
fantastic.
to be here.
So if you've enjoyed this conversation, please like and follow us on Instagram at Global Ed Unpacked. You can also watch the recorded show on YouTube channel at Global Education Unpacked, and listen to the audio version on your favorite podcast platform when I put them out there. This episode was recorded at WHCM Radio, produced by Blue Bailey, and features theme music by DJ Double Dip called Mint. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep exploring the world through education.